Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or good morning. We are here on Faith and Doubt, the show that I do once a month that examines the deeper questions. And since we're in July, this is episode 7. If you want to go back and learn where we've come from, make sense of where we are, and figure out where we ought to be, go back and watch the previous episodes. You'll find them. They're the red thumbnails on the live tab. But this one, I thought for sure had a good idea. Started it early. And wouldn't you know it, it became a struggle. I don't think I did it any justice, but you can decide. Let me know. We're working these ideas out. If you remember any of the last ones, you'll understand where this one is going and where it came from. So without any more delay, I hate it when people say that because all they do is delay by saying that. Let's get into it. This is on Faith and Doubt essay number 7, titled, Why God Doesn't... Oh my... Something's wrong with my brain today, sorry. The writing was terrible. Actually, it may be good, so stay with me. Why doesn't a good God stop it? The strongest argument against God is not delivered by a philosopher behind a podium. Instead, it comes from a broken father sitting beside a hospital bed, comforting a dying child. The father is looking at his son with tubes running into his body, listening to machines beep in the dark, and waiting for a doctor to walk through the door and tell him whether his son is going to live. He may have believed in God. He may still want to believe in God. But the weight of all of it pushes him to curse the idea that an all-powerful God would allow this suffering. That father is not looking for a religiously clever answer. He doesn't need someone to explain that God works in mysterious ways and that everything happens for a reason. He doesn't need random verses tossed at him before anyone has had the courage to sit down with him. The man wants to know why God did not stop it. If God knew this child before he was born, if God formed him in the womb, if God saw every cell in his body, then God saw the cancer too. He saw it before the doctors did. He saw it before the father did. He saw the day it would begin, the pain it would cause, and the death that it might bring. And yet, he still allowed it. Christians should not run from this question. If God knew this was happening and had the power to stop it, why would he allow it? We should not pretend the question is disrespectful or lacks faith. It could be one of the most honest questions a man can ask. Christianity claims that God is good, all-powerful, and in ultimate control. But suffering puts every one of those claims into contradiction. The world gives us plenty of evidence of this dilemma to work with. Children get cancer, young mothers die, families are destroyed in car accidents. Good people spend years in pain while cruel people live long enough to enjoy what they stole from others. Some prayers appear to be answered before they are finished. Others are repeated for years and seem to vanish into silence. If God can stop these things and does not, then the accusation is obvious. Either he is not as powerful as the Christians claim, or he is not as good. That accusation has driven people away from God for centuries. It has also haunted people who remained faithful. Job asked it. David asked it. Christ himself cried out on the cross, asking why he had been forsaken. But the Bible does not hide the question because the Bible was written by people who knew suffering was not an intellectual exercise. They buried children. They watched armies destroy cities. They lived through famine, disease, betrayal, and death. They did not need to be convinced that the world was broken. Religious people often make things worse by answering before they have listened. Everything happens for a reason. God has a plan. Suffering makes us stronger. The child is in a better place. Some of those statements may contain pieces of truth, but they usually are used as a way to close the subject before any actual pain is dealt with. Everything may happen for a reason, but that doesn't mean we know the reason. God may have a plan, but the person speaking usually has no idea how this particular death fits into it. Suffering may make people stronger, but it also ruins people. It leaves many bitter, frightened, addicted, and unable to trust anyone again. A child may be in a better place, but his mother will forever go home to an empty bedroom. That's why I wear sunglasses. Cheap answers do not defend God. They protect us from having to look directly at the wound. The skeptic looks directly at it and reaches a simple conclusion. A good God would stop this. An all-powerful God could stop this. Since it continues, such a God does not exist. That argument has power because it sounds like common sense. If a man saw a child drowning and could save him without risking anything, we would call him evil. If he stood there and watched, we would not accept his explanation that the child's suffering served a larger purpose. We would ask why he did not jump into the water. The skeptic looks at God the same way. God sees every drowning child, every tumor, every act of violence, and every terrified parent. He doesn't need to risk himself to intervene. He does not lack time, knowledge, or power. So if he allows the suffering anyway, why should we not judge him the way we would judge the man standing beside the water? That is the accusation in its strongest form, and Christians should leave it strong. Weakening the argument does not strengthen our answer. The first Christian response usually points to human freedom. God created people who can love, obey, forgive, and sacrifice. Those things mean very little if the opposite is impossible. A man cannot be faithful if betrayal is not available to him. He cannot be courageous if he is protected from every danger. He cannot love if he has no power to reject the person in front of him. Freedom carries a terrible risk. The same creature who can love can also hate. The hand that can feed a child can strike one. The mouth that can tell the truth can destroy a reputation with a lie. The will that can choose God can also choose cruelty, selfishness, and death. God could stop every evil choice before it causes harm. He could freeze the gunman's finger. He could close the drunk driver's eyes before he ever reached the car. He could make every knife dull when it was raised in anger. But then human freedom would become a kind of theater. We could choose evil in our minds, but God would remove the consequences before our choices became real. A world like that might be safer, but we would not be free in any serious sense. We would be children swinging wooden swords while God stood nearby, making sure no one ever got cut. Our decisions would matter only until they became dangerous. That helps explain murder, war, betrayal, and abuse, but it doesn't explain childhood cancer. A child does not choose a tumor. His parents do not freely decide that his cells should turn against him. The free will answer works only so far. It explains the suffering human beings cause one another. It does not explain earthquakes, infection, genetic disease, or the slow destruction of a body from within. Christians often move from free will to the fall of Eden. The world is not as God meant it to be. Human rebellion did not remain locked inside the human heart. It damaged creation itself. The ground became hard. Bodies began to fail. Disease entered. Death followed. The world still carries beauty, order, and life, but it also carries death and decay. A body can heal itself, but it can also grow a tumor. Rain can feed a field or wash away an entire town. Fire can warm a house or burn a family alive. The world works well enough to live in, but not well enough to trust it completely. There is some sense in that answer. A physical world needs regularity. Cells divide because bodies need to grow. Fires burn because fire has properties and purpose. Gravity pulls because without it, nothing would remain in place. Doctors can study the body because the body behaves according to consistent patterns. Farmers plant because seasons come. Builders build because weight, pressure, and material can be understood. The order that makes life possible also makes injury possible. The same cells that divide to repair a wound can divide in a way that destroys the body. The same gravity that holds a child on the earth can pull him down off a roof. The same rain that keeps him alive can flood the river and sweep him away. God could interrupt all of it. He could stop every dangerous cell. He could hold every falling child in the air. He could make every bullet harmless before it reached innocent flesh. He could keep the fire warm enough to cook food, but never hot enough to burn skin. That sounds like a better world, and in many ways it would be. But once God begins removing every painful consequence, human action loses its weight. A man could drive drunk without fear of killing anyone. A careless builder could ignore every measurement because the roof would never fall. A murderer could pull the trigger, knowing the bullet would vanish into the air. We would live inside a world where our choices could never become fully serious. That does not explain why God failed to make an exception for one child. A father beside a hospital bed does not care whether the laws of nature are usually dependable. He is asking why God did not suspend them this time. He is not asking for cancer to be removed from the whole history of the universe. He is asking God to remove it from his son. That question cannot be answered by talking about gravity and cellular division. It reaches beyond the general structure of the world and enters the private grief of one family. Why this child? Why this disease? Why now? Why did God not intervene? I do not know. Anyone who claims to know the exact reason behind another person's suffering should be treated cautiously. We can speak about why a world with suffering might exist. We cannot look at one child's cancer and announce what God intended to teach the world or his parents. We don't know enough. C.S. Lewis spent years thinking about suffering. In his book, The Problem of Pain, he tried to explain how a good God and a painful world could exist together. After his wife died, the subject changed. His writing became angry, confused, and personal. The neat problem had become grief. Lewis never argued that pain was good. He argued that God could use it for a deeper good. Those are different claims. Cancer does not become good because the family learns compassion. A death does not become good because someone begins to appreciate life. The good that grows around suffering does not change what the suffering is. Pain can make a person stronger. It can also destroy him. It can soften one heart and harden another. It can bring a family together or split it apart. There is no automatic machine inside suffering that produces wisdom. Some people come out of pain more loving. Others come out crueler crueler than they entered. The Bible leaves room for that confusion. Job does not sit quietly and praise the educational value of his losses. David does not write polite little poems about how suffering improved his attitude. Christ does not treat death as a useful spiritual exercise. He weeps, he asks for the cup to pass, and he calls death an enemy. Christianity does not begin by telling us suffering is good. It begins by telling us something has gone wrong. Before using evil to disprove God, we should ask what we mean by evil. When we see the suffering of a child and call it evil, we mean it should not happen. We mean the child ought to live. His body ought not turn against him. His father ought not have to watch him die. That little word ought implies a lot. A material universe can describe what happened inside the child's body. It can explain the cells, the mutations, the tumors, the blood flow, and the death. But it cannot explain why any of it is wrong. If the universe is only matter moving through time, then cancer is not evil. There would be no evil, because for there to be evil, there must also be good. C.S. Lewis argued that good and evil are not equal forces. Good can exist by itself. Evil cannot. Evil needs something good to destroy. A lie corrupts language. Betrayal corrupts trust. Cancer takes the healthy processor of cellular growth, and turns it against the body. It cannot grow in a stone. It needs life before it can destroy life. Evil is therefore not its own creation. It is a parasite. Even the devil in Christianity is not an eternal God of evil, standing opposite God as an equal. He is a fallen creature of God, whose existence, intelligence, and power came from God. His evil lies in how he uses those good things against the source that gave them to him. This does not explain why God allows suffering, but it exposes something inside the accusation against them. When the skeptic calls a child's cancer evil, he means more than that it is painful or unwanted. He meant it should not happen. The child ought to live. His body ought not turn against him. That judgment assumes real good has been violated. If the universe is only blind matter, cancer has broken no moral law. One biological process has simply defeated another. We may hate the result, but nature has done nothing wrong. No father beside his dying son believes that. He believes his child's life is truly valuable, and that the cancer is taking something away that it has no right to take. His anger at God depends on the moral order he is using the suffering to question. Say that last one again. His anger at God depends on the moral order he is using the suffering to question. I should rewrite that, huh? The argument from evil may therefore point toward God before it points away from him, but it still leaves the harder question unanswered. Why would the God behind that good allow it to be corrupted? We have already considered freedom in the natural order of the world. Neither tells the Father why God did not make an exception for his child. Nor can we dismiss suffering by saying some greater lesson may come from it. A child cannot be used merely to improve the character of the people watching him die. If that were God's entire purpose, the skeptic would be right to call it monstrous. The answer must be larger than a lesson, and it must be larger than this life. If death is the end, then much of the suffering in this world would never be repaired. A child who dies at 2 does not receive his missing years because his parents later become wiser or help another family. Their son is still gone. Christianity places the weight of its answers on resurrection. Without resurrection, death wins. Every grave remains closed, and every stolen year remains stolen. Paul admitted as much. If Christ was not raised, then the Christian faith is nothing. The claim cannot be used simply because we need a happy ending. Either Christ rose or he did not. But if he did, then suffering and death must be judged from beyond the grave rather than inside of it. The cross first appeared to prove that evil had won. Christ was ultimately betrayed, condemned, tortured, and killed. God did not prevent it. He allowed human freedom, political cowardice, religious pride to spend themselves against his son. None of that evil became good. The betrayal remained betrayal. The torture remained torture. The death remained death. But God refused to let those things determine the ending. The men who crucified Christ meant to silence him, shame him, and remove him. 3 days later, the tomb was empty. God's power is not shown only by preventing evil. It is also shown by defeating what evil means to accomplish. I know something about this because my own son developed cancer. God knew before the doctors found it. And if God is all-knowing, he saw the first cell turn against my son's body. If God is all-powerful, he could have stopped it. He did not stop it from the beginning. Or he did not stop it from beginning. Left untreated, the cancer would have killed my son at around 2.5 years old. For most of human history, children with this condition simply died. Their parents watched them weaken without understanding what was happening or having any way to stop it. Whew, it's been a long day. Yeah, sometimes it gets me. My son suffered through the disease and the treatment used to save him. I will not call that suffering good. I would not wish it on another child. I had to get myself together. Obviously, the devil has bitten me back. Here's the Coke that I so desperately don't want to drink anymore, or do, but at least we cut it down to one a day, and some days none. Whew. All right. My son suffered through the disease and the treatment used to save him. I will not call that suffering good. I would not wish it on another child, and I would not choose it again. Cancer took a good body and destroyed it, and tried to destroy it. But my son is 14 now. The disease that could have killed him at 2.5 did not get him, and did not get his birthdays, the meals at our table, the arguments and fights in our home, the competitions, the laughter, the ordinary days that followed. I have watched a boy grow up. Whew, it must be the new peptides. That's a good sentence. I just can't read it. At least no one's watching, huh? I have watched a boy grow up where the cancer intended to leave an empty room. You might be questioning the sadness. I'm not reading this. I can't see. I'm grateful for my son. But there's a lot of kids that we saw, that we met, that we know, that don't have it as good, and they died. And if that doesn't cause you to raise your fist, I don't know. Man, I'm a mess. Oh, torture. Those years did not make the cancer good. They showed that it was not final. Doctors, researchers, nurses, medicine, and generations of accumulated knowledge stood between my son and a disease that had killed children for thousands of years. I do not see those things as alternatives to God. Human beings learn how the body works, and using that knowledge to preserve life is part of the good resisting the corruption. That sentence a little choppy. Human beings learning how the body works and using that knowledge to preserve life are part of the good resisting the corruption. But another child did not survive. Another father prayed and still buried its son. Any Christian answer that works only when the child lives is no answer at all. The resurrection must reach the child too. Dude, I was not emotional when I wrote this. My son's survival gave me the years the cancer might have taken. The resurrection says that even cancer had killed him. If it had killed him, it could not have carried him beyond God's reach. That does not make a funeral painless. It means the grave is not the final possession of the person inside it. I still don't know why God allowed my son to get cancer, or why he survives while others die. Christianity does not give me that private knowledge. It gives me a God who entered suffering himself. Carried wounds to a grave. And got up and walked out. I'm almost done. This one's too heavy, I think. I think we went too far. The strongest argument against God comes from the Father beside the hospital bed. The Christian answer comes from a father, another father, who allowed his own son to die. God did not stop the crucifixion. He defeated what the crucifixion was meant to do. Cancer is not good. Pain is not good. Death is not good. Evil can only damage the life it has been given. It cannot create life, and it cannot raise the dead. Thanks for hanging with me.